Congratulations, you got the job. You don't know what the job is yet, but that's fine. Nobody told you the details when they hired you, mostly because if they had, you would have sprinted in the opposite direction and never looked back. The pay is terrible, the hours are worse, and the retirement plan is basically just dying before you get old enough to retire. Welcome to the workforce. Medieval edition. Throughout most of human history, going to work wasn't something you complained about over coffee. It was something you survived. Or didn't. Today we're ranking 5 of the deadliest jobs ever performed by actual human beings who had absolutely no choice in the matter. We're going from bad but survivable all the way down to a job so catastrophically lethal that the people who did it are the reason safety regulations exist at all. Let's get into it. Number 5. Rat catcher. You wake up. It's 1840s London. You're employed, technically. Your job title is rat catcher, which sounds manageable until you realize what it actually involves. You spend your working hours crawling through the sewers, cellars, and back alleys of one of the most densely packed cities on Earth, catching rats with your bare hands. Sometimes with a small dog. Sometimes just your hands. The rats are everywhere. Not cartoon rats, not 1 or 2 rats, thousands of rats. Fat, aggressive, disease-carrying rats that have been living in human waste their entire lives and have absolutely no intention of being caught quietly. You stuff them into sacks. You carry those sacks back through the same sewers you came from, and then, if you're feeling entrepreneurial, you sell the live ones to rat baiting arenas, where crowds paid to watch dogs kill them for sport. That was entertainment. You are part of the entertainment industry. Here's the part nobody mentions. The rats fought back. Bites were constant, and rat bites in the 1840s weren't a minor inconvenience. They were a potential death sentence. Rat catchers were regularly exposed to leptospirosis, a bacterial infection spread through rat urine that causes organ failure. They were exposed to fleas carrying bubonic plague. They were exposed to typhus, typhoid, and a rotating menu of infections that modern medicine has since largely eliminated. Some rat catchers also inhaled toxic gases while working in enclosed sewer spaces and simply never came back up. It was dangerous, it was disgusting, and it paid almost nothing. But compared to what's coming next on this list, rat catching was practically a desk job. Number 4. Chimney sweep. You are 7 years old. Congratulations, you're employed. In 18th century Britain, chimney sweeps were often children, specifically because children were small enough to fit inside the narrow chimney flues that adults couldn't enter. Master sweeps would acquire young boys, sometimes orphans, sometimes children sold by desperate families, and send them up into chimneys that were still warm, sometimes still on fire. Your job was to climb up the inside of the chimney shaft, scraping soot from the walls as you went, using your elbows, knees, and back to brace yourself against the narrow stone walls. The flues were often no wider than 9 inches across. You went up in the dark, alone, with soot raining down into your eyes and lungs with every movement. If you got stuck, and children regularly got stuck, the solution was sometimes to light a small fire beneath you to motivate you to keep climbing. The long-term effects were catastrophic. Chimney sweeps developed a condition called sooty warts, a form of scrotal cancer caused by constant soot exposure, which became one of the first occupational cancers ever identified in medical history. Their lungs deteriorated from years of inhaling fine particulate matter. Their spines and joints were permanently deformed from years of contorting through tight shafts during critical growth years. Most chimney sweeps didn't live long enough to complain about it. Britain didn't fully ban the use of child chimney sweeps until 1875. Decades of knowing it was killing children and continuing anyway. Number 3. Radium Dial Painter. It's 1917. You are a young woman sitting at a well-lit factory bench in New Jersey. The work looks almost elegant. You're painting luminous numbers onto watch dials using a fine brush and a glowing paint made from radium. Your supervisors tell you the paint is completely safe. They tell you this while standing at a comfortable distance from you across the room. To keep your brush tip precise, you've been instructed to do something called lip pointing. You put the brush in your mouth, press your lips around it to shape the tip, dip it in the radium paint, and apply it to the dial. Then you repeat, dozens of times per day, hundreds of times per week. You are eating radium. Slowly, methodically, and with no idea whatsoever. Radium behaves like calcium in the human body. Your bones absorb it and hold it there permanently. It then irradiates you from the inside, continuously, for the rest of your life. The women who worked these jobs, later known as the Radium Girls, began developing catastrophic symptoms within years. Their jawbones literally crumbled. Holes formed spontaneously in their skulls. Their teeth fell out. They developed severe anemia, bone cancer, and died in prolonged agony. Some of their bodies were so thoroughly contaminated that decades after burial, their remains were still radioactive. The company knew. Documents later proved they were aware of the dangers and actively concealed them. The Radium Girls sued, won, and their case established the legal foundation for worker safety and compensation rights that still exist today. They paid for those rights with their bones. Number 2. Medieval siege miner. Forget the soldiers on the battlefield for a moment. Forget the archers and the cavalry. The most quietly terrifying job in medieval warfare belonged to a group of men most people have never heard of, the siege miners. Their job was to win battles by digging underneath them. When an army wanted to bring down a castle wall, they didn't always ram it or climb it. Sometimes they went under it. Miners would dig a tunnel directly beneath the foundation of the wall, propping the tunnel up with wooden supports as they went. Once the tunnel was large enough and deep enough, they packed it with flammable material, set it on fire, and ran. The wooden supports burned away, the tunnel collapsed, and the section of wall above it came down with it. Simple enough in theory. In practice, you are digging in complete darkness, in a tunnel barely wide enough to turn around in, directly beneath an active war zone, while the castle's defenders are doing everything possible to stop you. Defenders would dig counter tunnels trying to intercept yours. They would pump water or smoke into the ground to flood or suffocate you. They would listen at the surface with bowls of water, watching for ripples that revealed where you were digging, and then attempt to break through to your tunnel and kill everyone inside it. And if none of that got you, there was always the possibility that your own tunnel collapsed before you made it out. Buried alive, in the dark, under a castle, in a war. Nobody was writing songs about the miners. Number 1. Matchstick factory worker. It's the 1850s. You work in a match factory. The hours are long, the pay is almost nothing, and the factory floor smells like something between a chemical plant and a crematorium. The matches you produce use white phosphorus, an extraordinarily toxic substance that glows faintly in the dark and destroys human tissue on contact with terrifying efficiency. You breathe it in every day. It settles into your body and begins its work quietly. At first you notice toothaches, then jaw pain, then your gums start to swell. What comes next has a name. They called it Phossy jaw. The formal name is phosphorus necrosis of the jaw. Your jawbone begins to rot from the inside. It turns green. It glows faintly in the dark, a sickly yellow-green light visible in a darkened room, which sounds almost supernatural until you understand it is your own dying bone tissue illuminating itself. The rot spreads. The pain becomes constant. The only treatment was surgical removal of the jaw, which left survivors permanently disfigured. Without surgery, the infection spread to the brain and killed you. Workers in these factories were often young women and children. The companies producing white phosphorus matches knew it was lethal. Safer alternatives existed. They chose profit. It took decades of activism, worker deaths, and public outcry before white phosphorus matches were finally banned in most countries in the early 1900s. The people who worked those factories didn't just lose their health, they lost their faces. Every safety regulation you've never had to think about exists because someone died without one. Every workplace protection, every hazard label, every requirement that your employer tell you what chemicals you're breathing, all of it was purchased at an extraordinary cost by people who had no choice but to show up anyway. So the next time work feels hard, remember the woman whose bones were glowing, and maybe say thank you. Thanks for watching, Human Beta. Hit subscribe before your jaw starts rotting.